Yeah, welcome everyone to the second day of the Dash Retreat. Yeah, yeah. We're here with the one and only Quantum Explorer, aka Sam Westrich, and we're going to discuss platform. So uh, we're going to take questions from the folks on site, and if you're watching live, please do. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment box, and our colleague One Time here will set them aside, and we'll get to them in a timely fashion. So the first question we had today came from Max, aka Float Tank Guy. And he asks, Sam, how can we explain platform to a regular person?
Well, you first need to tell me what a regular person is.
I'd say not a developer.
Okay, not a developer. Okay. I think like some people that are like budding into the crypto space, you could explain it as platform is a new type of blockchain that is associated with the Dash blockchain. And this blockchain contains a full knowledge in real time of any information that went into platform. So it is a completely decentralized storage system that this is actually kind of a little bit more complicated than something very easy for somebody in layman terms. Let's see, more layman terms. I would say platform is how cloud computing changed, like, everything went into the cloud. This is kind of the new evolution of that into blockchain. There's been a lot of attempts in other systems where in other blockchains to go into Web3, but they've always been surrounded by centralized systems. So it's not really decentralized, and we're with platform trying to make the first truly decentralized Web3. Something like that.
Okay. All right. What do you think?
It's not very good. I'm not the real marketer. I'm a more engineer type guy. Hey, wait, is everybody gone?
No, we're here. We're just thought we'd make you front and center when you're responding to questions. Okay, we have another question from Amanda Johnson.
Yeah, sure.
When thinking of cloud storage, I think a lot of people first thought would be, oh, I want to store my pictures of my family or my videos of my going motorcycling. But that doesn't sound like that's what platform can store, at least not initially. So what's the ideal data type that platform can store?
Yeah, so the reason why it's not super great for cloud, for picture storage or video storage or anything like that, is that you have the replication factor on the network. Decentralized systems are often less efficient than centralized systems, but you actually do gain a lot from it being decentralized, like the fact that it can never go down, that you never have to worry about a single entity deciding to stop your data from flowing out. There's a lot of advantages from a decentralized system. But to answer your question, what type of data are we looking for? Well, at least at the very beginning, we're mostly looking for small data, right? So like information on the price of, like, if you wanted to set up a store, right? Or if you wanted to create a contract, let's just imagine a company wants to create a contract for figuring out where its supply chain for its supply chain. So like it has different parts that it moves across the country, and it needs to keep track of all those parts. You could also have like that all of that data. That's not images, right? It's like small data, but it's probably a lot more efficient to do this in platform than it would be to do it in a centralized system. One of the main advantages of what we're building is, let's imagine you are that company, right? And wow, you have to build an entire new system. You have to hire developers that 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 cost a lot of money. And with platform, you can just yeah, you might have to hire a developer to write the contract, but all the infrastructure is already there for you. So you don't have to think about, oh, the server might go down, or the database might get corrupted at some point, or the database might run out of storage. There are so many things that can go wrong with the system, and that's why you need maintenance. But when you use Dash Platform, yeah, the maintenance is done. Like there is no maintenance cost, even with cloud computing, right? Often you do have maintenance costs, or you have a very high per month fee. With Dash Platform, you wouldn't. You would just pay every single time you use it. So if you use it, just store a little bit of data in there, you're paying like per time you store, instead of a fee that might you know be quite extravagant for small companies. So hope that answers.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to jump in real quick if I could, Roel, and we'll get to you next. Question for you, Sam, is for myself. I did see some chatter in the past weeks about, will the folks that are hosting this data be able to choose what type of data that they do support? And then it brought up, concerns about, well, is this like a censorship vector? And I just, I'm a big fan of crypto for being unstoppable and uncensorable. So is there going to be any functionality that could be a thing, or is this just a false narrative?
Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of liberty, but the liberty goes both ways, right? So like we don't want to force people that run Evo nodes to run content that could be really bad for them to host. It's a very tricky subject, and one that personally I don't feel comfortable making unilaterally. I mean, I don't have that power anyways. So it will, when we get to that point, there's going to be a lot of discussion, I'm sure, in our community on how we want to tackle this problem. What I would put forward is that we kind of go. I feel like whatever I say right now, people are going to be like, ah! But I think we should go the Reddit model, kind of. Reddit has a lot of problems, right? But take some things from there, where you have levels of mods that can decide what and what not to allow. But we also have to think about, like, we could also at the same time make some contracts uncensorable, as long as those contracts don't have the ability to do anything vastly illegal, right? And then there's the whole question of what is illegal, and it goes down a real big rabbit hole. I'll be honest that at the moment, what we're trying to do for release is we are limiting the sizes of data to mimic like what other blockchains can host. So basically pushing this problem out. But at some point in the future, like if you want to be able to push pictures to platform, we will have to figure this out, right? Because allowing completely unmoderated pictures, I mean, not only pictures, there's and unmoderated public forums can go really bad. So yeah, I think as a community, we really have to figure that one out. But for the first release, yeah, we won't have this. We won't have that ability. So, one thing at a time, basically. What I do think that when we get to that, it's going to be a very big problem But at least it will be a problem to have, right? Right now we have no system on mainnet, so let's first get something out there, and then we can figure out how to build upon it and make it good as a group. But yeah, I hate that. I hate talking about this because it always goes down in like a massive bottomless pit of everybody has a different idea on what to do here, and it's going to be very tricky.
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that. And here's Roel from Mexico, Monterrey.
Yeah, I know software is never finished, but when would we have a functional platform?
Good question. So the first 5 planets, like Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Jupiter, we have to have them all align. No, I'm joking. Well, right now we're in our testing phase. We've solved a lot of issues over the last few weeks. This is part of the course of what I expected to happen. Would I say that the testing phase is going well? Yeah, it's going well. We released platform yesterday, and now it's been stable for was it either yesterday or the day before yesterday, depending on where you are in the world. And yeah, it's been stable for quite some time now. We had Dash Money that tested things out. He found one small issue that didn't actually stop him. But yeah, I mean, this is the first time it's kind of worked for the new system, right? I am going to say that there is a lot of stuff left to do. Not so much. Well, there's stuff to do in platform. Some things that were not completed, like we need to get the fees worked out well. We need to get the and I mean the fee system is all done, right? But we need to get the economics right of the system, and that actually is going to take some time. Masternode voting is something that needs to kind of be finished and finalized. That went a little bit wrong, and now I'm redoing it basically. But for the last few weeks, I've been on
and slowed months.
Oh, what? Oh,
Okay.
never mind.
You're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for the past few weeks, I've been really focusing on stability because we need a stable system before we can finish those few things. We also have withdrawals. So withdrawals are all written up, but there are some modifications that need to happen for it to function properly. So the tech's there, but we have to make a few little tweaks and changes. Yeah, and then we have we have to basically stress test the system. And the stress testing of the system, we have about a month there. So yeah, as you can see, like that's not close to like how much we've already done, right? I mean, a year excuse me, Grove DB only got started to be written a year and 9 months ago, right? So like we are definitely in the in phase, but that in phase takes some time. So all I can say is that we're doing the best we can. We did have a few developers leave, so we are at we have less people than before, but we are still pushing forward as fast as we can.
Best guess about time?
Best case is we release in November, but I give that at a 10% chance. Oh, release. When I say release, I mean release the binaries, and it would activate about a month later.
Okay,
But
thanks.
I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like there, as I said, there are those 4 things to do, and there's going to be more bugs to be found, and during the stress test, we're going to find issues. Um, yeah, I think release in December is a higher chance of happening, or release in January in the worst case, but not even in the worst case. It's one of those things that it's hard to know the unknowns in advance. But the one thing that is very good compared to before is well, well, pretty much everything has been rewritten, or close to everything has been rewritten over the last 2 years. Like, between the time that I became CTO and now, we have very little code that's from the before time, basically. Like, the only part of code that's from the before time is actually DAPI, and there's 14,000 lines of code there. Compare and platform together with everything, Tender Dash and everything, probably has. I mean, platform I think has 500,000 lines, and Tender Dash has 300,000. So like 14,000 is not that much. So yeah, that's I am worried. I'm not gonna come in here and say no, it's no problem. But I do see. I mean, there were a lot of developers working on a Saturday. A lot of people are working very hard through the weekends to try to get things out as quick as possible. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that overview, Sam, and appreciate your candidness. We have a couple questions received from the online audience that one time is going to display now.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, can you see that? What kind of skills would a dev need to develop dApps on Dash platform? That's from XKCD, aka Michael Cluster.
Well, I think that a basic understanding of data structures, not data structures, but like how data should be modeled would be a good idea. Like, for example, what you get taught in a very junior computer science class. Yeah, stuff like that. That would generally help. We do have dashpay.io that will help a lot, and I believe that nowadays any developer at all, if they need help, they could just ask AI. There are various there's like Chat GPT-4. There's I think Bard. There are a few others, right? And I think they would all give you a pretty good answer to any of your questions. So the level of entry has never been lower. Yeah. So there are some advanced features, like, for example, you can set specialized encryption and decryption keys for a specific DApp, and that might be a little bit more complicated for some developers, but not so much, right? I mean, they can just understand, okay, I want my app to have encryption between users. So right now we only support something called elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman, which allows encryption between between users using elliptical curve cryptography. But yeah, I don't think that this is very complex. I mean, they don't have to understand the crypto at all. All they have to say is, my contract, this document, I want this document to be encrypted, and I want it to be encrypted, and I want people to be able to set their encryption and decryption keys. And you don't have to know anything about it. You can just say, that's what I want, and underlying system will allow it. Now, then you have the people that are actually building the apps I mean, not the contract, right? But the apps themselves, yeah, they would need to know some basic cryptography. I mean, they'd have to at least know how to use, cryptography libraries to be able to, create a key and do the elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman exchange and encrypt something. But these are things that libraries just give to you, so you don't have to understand the cryptography underneath. And why am I bringing this one up? Because this is probably the hardest thing that somebody would need to deal with. Generally, a lot of the difficulty is just removed. What else could be hard? Yeah, knowing what indexes to add to your contract, that could be a little bit hard. For example, the indexes are how you allow users to query the data. So in a lot of traditional databases, you can query off things that are not indexed. Because of the nature of platform and the decentralized and the fact that it has proofs, you have to set an index for everything you want to allow the user to query, with some caveats. There, for example, you can get extra data, you can get the full data, but just having like a subsection of the index. But yeah, you like knowing how to put the index in. That's kind of maybe a level of difficulty, but these are things that, I mean, I knew when I was, just coming out of university, and I'm pretty sure that very junior developers could manage this.
Okay, thanks for that thorough response. I think, yeah, one time has another one from the online audience. Danny says he was looking at reentry attacks. Do you think it's a major concern for people developing smart contracts? The rest.
Would you ever allow another person to defecate in your mouth? Thanks. I don't know if this is a real question or not.
Well, it's tough. It's tough to parse out the if they come in as one comment. But the first part, reentry attacks, is that something that's merits any response?
Yeah. So I'm gonna guess that this is a reentry attack is when you allow a function to make external calls to untrusted contracts, I believe. I don't know much about them. These might be attacks that exist in the Ethereum space, but these are not attacks that currently exist for us, because we don't currently have smart contracts, at least for the first version. And so there are no attacks of that nature that are possible. Now, when we do have smart contracts, definitely we'll look into these types of things, but it's not something that we have to worry for right now.
Okay, Ryan, you have any questions or any of the developer guys here?
What's the story about reserving, like being able to claim a certain username? Like if I wanted to just be a jerk and claim the Coca-Cola username, how are we addressing that?
Yeah, so this is the story around masternode voting. I'm going to go a little bit in depth here, but not like crazy in depth. Any index, well, this is one of the advanced features of data contracts. Any unique index, you can set as a contested unique index, and you set a resolution to that contested unique index. So let me kind of give an example. So what is a unique index in this situation? Well, the username is unique. Two people cannot have the same username. So you set that username as a unique contested index. I mean, you want to be able to query anyways from the username. So what this basically means is when somebody takes that username, they don't get it right away. Instead, it acts as a non-unique index, and there's a conflict resolution to make it unique. So for people that like quantum stuff, it's kind of like in a superposition of state. It could be like I try to get the username quantum, and somebody else tries to get the username quantum. Both of us want it. It can go to either person, and then there's something that we call a conflict resolution. For the first version, the only kind of conflict resolution will be a masternode vote, like a full masternode vote. So let's imagine we both want that username. Well, or Coca-Cola, since you said Coca-Cola. Two people want the username Coca-Cola. There's a phase. There's a phase where people are going to try to get their usernames, and then there's a phase afterwards where masternodes can vote on who who actually will get the username. And after the second phase, the person that gets the most votes basically gets the username. And this is allowed for the DPNS contract, but other contracts can also use conflict resolution. To use conflict resolution for and ask for a masternode vote, though, when you register the contract, it actually will charge a lot more, because we don't want basically contracts to pester the masternode network whenever they want, right? So you're basically asking for work from a lot of masternode users, so you have to pay a little bit more. So that's kind of how it's going to work. And we have the UI in the iOS and Android apps for so what you can do is you can import your voting keys into your iOS app and or Android app, and you can just vote on, like, who do I think is quantum, this person, this identity, or this identity. And yeah, so that's kind of how we're gonna deal with that at the beginning. It's also going to be only for things without numbers. So if you want a username and you want it immediately, you can just use, you could put like Samuel1, right? Or something like that. And those are immediate. There's no conflict resolution for those.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, Ryan's shaking his head. He sounds happy with that answer. I guess I have another question for you, Sam, and it stems from yesterday during the trivia. And I don't know if you saw the trivia live or after the fact, but I did see you comment on one of the questions we had a bit of conversation about was, did Sam Westrich really come up with the Dash logo, the previous Dash logo? And you clarified on Discord, and you said you didn't do that, but that it was a couple in-house kind of freelancers who maybe created that, but that you came up with the name Dash. And so that leads me to two questions. One is just how long have you been involved with Dash? And then two is how would you say, what is your opinion of how evolution, when it was first broached, into what it's morphed into now? Like how does that sit with you, or what are your overall thoughts, like looking back?
Yeah, that's okay. So I'll take them one by one. So I got involved very early on when the name of the project was Darkcoin, and I was living in China at the time, actually. There was a very, very, very early crypto scene in Beijing. I mean, very, very few people, right? At that point, like we're talking, well, I got involved before, X11 coin and Darkcoin came out, but yeah, I don't know. I was not around for the X11 period. I only came in like a few weeks later in Darkcoin, and I was not really part of the project. I just liked the project. And what I did was I noticed that there was no iOS app for it. So I built out the iOS app without talking to anybody about it. And then a few weeks later, Evan posted that, "Hey, we want an iOS app for the project." Actually, wait, that was not the first time I got involved. The first time I got involved is I didn't like the name Darkcoin that much. I mean, it was a good name, but the problem is that it was really hard to get a lot of people that I knew involved because they just would not be interested in the project just because of the name. And this was happening a lot in China. So I posted on Reddit, I believe, like a long thing about why we should change the name to Dash. It was picked up in, as far as I know, it was picked up by Flair, who showed it to Evan. And then a few weeks later, Evan said we were changing the name to Dash. I was like, what? Somebody agreed with me, or I posted it either on the forums or I don't know where I posted it at this point. I believe it was on Reddit, but then we switched our Reddits later on, I think to change the moderators. So we don't have those old messages. But that's what Flair remembers as well. So I remember where I was and how I came up with the name as well. I've said this a few times. I was in my room and I was trying to think of like, so, you know, I was trying to think of like the evolution of cash, right? And then basically the next letter after C is D. And then, you know, I also was thinking digital cash. And it just popped in my head that, yeah, that's like, wow, that's a great name. So yeah. What was the next part of this question?
Yeah, I appreciate that historical revisitation in time. I thought maybe you were going to say you were watching the movie The Incredibles and then you got excited by the speed of the little son, but that's a good story you had too. But the second part of my question was, since you've been involved for that, you've seen all these changes. My second part was, what are your thoughts looking back on when evolution was first broached to what it's emerged to today?
You know, hindsight is always 2020, right? And yeah, I saw like just so people know, right? I was outside of the project in 2016 and some of 2017 for health reasons. And then I came back once I was cured in 2017, late 2017, right? And built out the mobile team. So there is like a gap of, I mean, I was still in Slack and I was still looking at messages, but very few during that period. So I'll talk about early on. A long time ago, me and Evan had a conversation around what happens if we had on every node we had an Electrum server, right? And I think this is what, I mean, I don't know if that's what started the idea, or if it was like the a light bulb, or I'm not really sure. But he had also, I think, been thinking about us going in such directions and what the powers of masternodes could be and what we could achieve with them. So yeah, back then, 2015, 2016, we had, I do remember that Evan was working on, you know, prototypes for it wasn't called Platform at that point, it was called Evolution. And he used SQLite as a type of database, and I actually think that was kind of the right approach. No, I mean, it's not the right approach, but it was a better approach than what came after. Then we had, a change where well, the price of Dash was not extremely high at this point. It was like under $10. It was 2016, 2017. Well, early 2017, and yeah, there was some work on things, but it was not. It was just going around in circles. It wasn't. I don't think that there was much progress in that period of time um, towards towards evolution. Then in 2017, there was a massive hiring spree with a lot of. I'll call this kind of the Andy era. So Andy was really 2016, 2017, and Andy was a visionary, and he really believed that anybody who wanted to come in to kind of the movement that we were trying to build should be allowed. Now, so a lot of I really do believe that there were some unqualified people that were working at that point, and they left actually quite quickly, like maybe in 2018, or maybe not quick enough, but yeah, there was a lot of bad decisions I think that were made, and we went down a path very different than what I think we should have gone down. Platform was being built in JavaScript. I thought that that was, you know, terrible. But at the same time, like, you know, I became head of mobile team, so I didn't really have a say in that area of things, and people seemed really confident that that was the way to go, and so, you know, we shall see, right? And after a few years there, we saw that no, it was not the right way to go, and it was became dead obvious. So yeah, uh, I started being more vocal about it being the wrong way to go, and like trying to change how we were doing things around 2020, right? Like at that point, I just went into a dark cave, also known as my room, and built out Tender Dash, the first version of Tender Dash, using threshold signatures and all the tech that we had built before for core. And like to make it the right type of consensus engine. But I knew that there were, you know, at that point, we were using MongoDB to store the state, and it just didn't work. Like it just, yeah, there were just so many things that did not work, and yeah, it's been a uphill battle changing all of these different technologies into actual things that do work. You know, sometimes having to build them from scratch because there's nothing that exists out there to do what we need. You know, we are doing, you know, stuff that has never been done in the history of mankind. I mean, who knows, even in the universe. So yeah, it's like very new stuff, and yeah, you had to build a lot of stuff. So do I reflect well on it? There's definitely pain. Shouting into the void, I feel like for some period as well. But we, in about 2 years ago, we hired a lot of new people, and we built, you know, we built Tender Dash was built out a lot more powerful. We went into one of the issues there was, you know, it was a fork of Tendermint, and Tendermint uses 2-block execution, and we needed single block execution. So we basically had to rewrite a lot of that. So now the projects are very, very different. They have some components together that are similar, right? But the underlying system works very differently. we built out GroveDB, which is the first of its class type database. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff built. And now it's built, so we're in a not too bad situation. We just have to get the kinks ironed out, um, do the last few little things that I mentioned earlier, and release.
I have a question.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, hopefully you find some moments of joy here and there to counterbalance that and all that hardship. And yeah, blazing a new trail is not easy. So appreciate the tenacity. We got a question back here from Matt, the float tank guy who came from Oregon.
Huge fan.
Oh, cool.
He says huge fan.
Thanks. Have you ever floated in a float tank? And would you ever consider setting up a float tank so you could, shout into the void?
You know what a float tank is?
Yes. Do you know the movie Enter the Void by any chance?
I said
No. I
Sounds like-
think it's like
Sounds
It's
like,
like
spinning.
That was just, is that part of the Johansson movie?
well, it's a guy who gets shot in Japan while he's high on DMT, and
No.
his conscious basically floats around. It's a very interesting movie if anybody's interested.
I haven't seen the whole movie.
But yeah, he he sees all of how his sister and his family just crumble, and you see like I think his sister enters prostitution, and he like wants to shout at as he's like watching this as an ethereal spirit. This is like completely out there, but yeah, about float tanks, no, I can shout just I can go to my balcony and shout. It's about the same. But I mean, yeah, sensory deprivation is always something that could be interesting. I feel like I've never done it before, but maybe one day I'll try.
Well, if you make your way up to Oregon, I'm sure Max would hook you
Yeah,
up.
we'll get you in a float tank.
Yeah. Sounds like one
Maybe
time.
you Yeah, maybe you can do it with the new like Apple what is it? Apple VR goggles.
Sure. Okay, one time got a question here from TL. When platform launches with version 20, I can purchase TL1 with the SDK.
Yeah.
Can you unpack what that is? Can you read the question? Yeah, what's TL1? Is that
The name.
the name TL1? I see.
Yeah,
TL1.
you can immediately.
Oh, you can't purchase it. You can ask to purchase it, right?
Ryan's asking for clarification. He says you can ask to purchase it, but not necessarily purchase it, correct?
What if I
No.
want-
So TL1 has a number in it. So
What if I want?
We said earlier if it has a number, whoever claims it first gets it.
Oh, okay. First serve all,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
So and by the way, you can play with dApps without having a username. You don't need a username for dApps.
Okay.
You need a username for DashPay, so you can send money between. I mean usernames, but I mean theoretically you don't even need a username for DashPay. You can send between identities directly through the core payment chain. DashPay is actually a very quite a complex system where the identities are linked on platform, but the payments are not done on platform to keep pseudo anonymity between like when I send money to you, Pete, for example, right? I don't want anybody else to know that. So that's, I mean, DashPay, I wouldn't say that it's impossible to figure that out if you don't mix your coins, but it's not visible on the chain. I mean, it's not easy to figure out. Maybe coin analysis could figure it out, but it wouldn't be very simple.
Okay, looks like we have about up to 15 minutes left. If there's any more questions online or in person.
When is version 20 coming?
Roel asks when version 20 is slated to come out.
Version 20 of Core. So it's slated for mid-end November right now, or mid-November. We have to decide. We still haven't made the decision if we're gonna release that, and basically like put platform on top of it when platform's ready, before it activates, right? Or if we're gonna release it together. I mean, what should happen is that we release it together. But yeah, we haven't as a team decided that yet. So we might, I mean, even if V20 is completely ready, we might delay it for platform. And that's the question that we have to decide inside BCG.
Okay, thanks for that answer, Sam. Here's a question from Halawi, the one and only. For usernames, we should do a proof of social method for known Dash community members initially. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. If you want the name Halawi, right? You can, yeah, you can just you say I'd like the name Halawi. Somebody else says I'd like the name Halawi, and then for 9 days, you'll have a 9-day window where any masternode can vote for either or. So and at the end, the person with the most votes gets the username. It's just a popularity contest. What is the block size and block time on platform, and are blocks finalized after one confirmation? Yeah, they're finalized. Well, actually, they're finalized as soon as they get their signature. So, yeah, as soon as a block exists, it's finalized. And what was the beginning of the question? I was block size. Okay, there we go. So I believe that the block size is 100 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken. And there's blocks can come in as quick as they want. So like they could be in 2 seconds if the network can handle them going that fast. So we do have to understand that blocks are discarded from most nodes. They're pruned. What matters in platform is the state, not blocks. So, we do have a few nodes that will hold all blocks, but most Evo nodes will not have to. I mean, none will have to, except if you want to hold the entire chain. But the entire chain probably after a few years will be in the terabytes. Yeah, it's not a requirement, right? Well, all that you need to do is hold the state as an Evo node. And yeah, and like I think 1,000 blocks before that, or 10,000 blocks before that. I have to remember that stuff.
Okay, and I know One Time has one more question from online, but we have a couple in-house here from some incubator devs, AJ O'Neill and Jojo Bites back there. So, AJ, what do you got?
How in the world is this going to be economically feasible for cloud services that are going to cost hundreds of dollars a month per terabyte to be stored? Because pretty much all the nodes are hosted on AWS. Nobody owns the hard drives are cheap. I want to get a terabyte hard drive to Walmart.
I'm really sorry, but I can't hear you very well.
What's up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, if you come closer, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so if I go to Walmart and I want a terabyte, I pay $100. I'm done. If I want a terabyte on Amazon, I pay $100 every month.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If I have 2,000 nodes that need a terabyte to replicate data, then I am not now my math fails. Like I don't make that much a month.
Yeah,
How's-
of course. But you don't need to hold a terabyte on platform, right? You only need to hold the state, right? So when I said a terabyte earlier, that was for a few years of blockchain. The way the fees work in platform is that we calculate the fees for 50 years, and we have a multiplier that the masternodes can decide on. Now, for the first version, the multiplier is just going to be set to 2. Okay, this is actually a quite complex system, but I'll do my best to explain. And the next version that we'll release will allow masternodes to vote on the multiplier, so they can, like, if the dash price increases a lot, they can switch the fee multiplier up or down for the future. So basically, like, users don't pay like super high fees anymore when if the dash price went way up, and if the dash price goes way down, they can lower the fees, to kind of make it to always kind of allow users to pay something sensible. That system won't be on the release. On the release, we're just going to go ×2 the initial fee. So there could be a situation where the dash price goes way up, and in that sense, things could become quite expensive for users until the version that fixes this, the next version after that, or if it went way down, it could go bad. If the price divided by 2, then you'd start to subsidize the cost. But let's go back to how does this work and how do you make money? Okay, so the storage, right? In a lot of other blockchains, what happens is you get a state transition, right? And it goes to the miners or it goes to the nodes directly. Not in our system. In our system, we have the concept of epochs. And an epoch currently is 18 days. We're going to try to make it 9 days. But we have in the system 50 years of epochs. So on every single block, you take every state transition and you basically divide the storage fee into 50 years of epochs. Actually, that's not exactly how it works. There's actually an accumulator, and then at the end of the epoch, it divides, it pushes it away for a lot of underlying optimizations to make the system more efficient. But basically, what happens is that fee that you're going to pay for a state transition, it's spread over 50 years, meaning that you don't, like, as you run an Evo node, let's imagine that you have like the state is 5 terabytes. Well, you're going to get paid a lot of money every month from the fee storage for hosting that 50 terabytes. So the way it should work in theory is that you'd always have a benefit. You'd always be making more money even if there are no state transitions happening anymore.
Okay, and real quick, we have 5 questions in the queue, so if we could keep our follow-ups.
I'll answer more later if you want.
Either way, yeah. Okay, Jojo, you got, yeah, come on up here. The mic's right here.
Sure. So concerning the usernames, if there is, say, I go by Jojo Byte, but say I get the username Jojo and someone else really wants it. Are you able to transfer that? Are you able to rename? Could I go, well, most people know me by Jojo Byte, so I might as well rename to Jojo Byte and let this person have Jojo or something like that. Or are you stuck once you've got that name, that kind of thing?
So you, for your identity, you're allowed 1 username and as many aliases as you want. So you can take, other aliases. Now, can you transfer the username? Not for the first version. We do believe that in the future we should have a marketplace allowing people to sell these things between people. Like, let's imagine somebody wants to spend $1 million for a certain username, right? Can happen. It should be a free flowing market, and that should be possible, but not for the first version. We can build everything. We don't have enough developers to do everything we want to do for the get-go. We first just have to release something, and then we'll build on it incrementally as best we can.
Okay, thanks for that, Sam. Okay, first from online, Cinnamon asks, if we were building on top of this, what language do we need to code in?
If we are building on top of this, oh, so like if you're building a dApp, I'm guessing that's the question. Any language. We're gonna have SDKs in JavaScript, in Rust, for iOS and for Android. So there'll be 4 SDKs at the get-go. To varying degrees, some will be a little bit better tested than others. I do expect, potentially some features not to exist in some SDKs that are used in some others. But generally, yeah, those languages. But again, like, let's imagine you want to code in Golang, right? Well, you can use the Rust SDK, and you could potentially make bindings for it for Golang. So, later down the line, we'll probably have many more languages supported, like such as Python and others. But currently, yeah, those 4 that I said earlier. Is there any language? Is that for the person that asked that question? Is the language that you want included in the 4 that I gave? Just curious.
Yeah, that's for Cinnamon if they still happen to be watching. Okay, we'll move on in the meantime to TL again. He asks, do you have an estimate for when the Dash SJ SDK will release with the identity card transfer and withdrawal capability?
So as far as I know, the identity credit transfer currently works. I mean, so we have the dev version of the JavaScript SDK. I thought that we released the actual version, like non-dev, but I'm not sure actually. It might have happened on Friday. I wasn't completely paying attention. So if it wasn't on Friday, it will happen early next week. Withdrawals, that's going to be a few more weeks. I'm basically going down like a queue. Next thing is Mastnode voting. Then we're gonna fix. Then I'm gonna help fix the RS SDK. Then I'm gonna be working on withdrawals and then fees. So in that order.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks. Okay, Just Me says, I just think I finally realized due to Joel's video that one of the big issues for platform, uses for platform is to be the database, multi-layered for projects on other coins like Ethereum network. Yes?
Potentially other networks. Yeah, I don't know if it would work very well with Ethereum, mostly because you'd have to have a centralized bridge, and those can get a little bit, I don't like centralized bridges. It's possible. I know that Ethereum, their tech is very different than it was a few years ago. So maybe they do allow inter-blockchain communication at this point. I must admit I haven't looked into it. But yeah, other projects like that are all based off of Tendermint, that would be much like the Cosmos ecosystems, and what's the other projects that I'm thinking of? There are a lot of other projects that, yeah, it could work very well. Ethereum might be a little bit more tricky. Is basically.
Okay, here, yeah, we'll find out when we get there. And then Just Me follows up. Also, is the name server capable of hooking into other coin projects?
Well, not yet. Not yet. But it will eventually.
Okay.
I mean, you can use the name server, right? But you're going to have to pay for your names using credits that are convertible from Dash. If you wanted to pay with, like, if you wanted to have a seamless system that works in another coin project, you'd need to be able to pay with that coin project's token. So, you know, there's a lot of work there to make that all work.
All right, so appreciate your time. We're just at that hour mark that we're fortunate to get from you. Appreciate you making time for us. I know you're busy and traveling and coding.
I'm at home.
But
at home now.
yeah, so if anyone has any additional questions for Sam, please reach out. His contact info is in the video description, and he's obviously pretty active on the Discord and elsewhere. So
Yeah.
Sam, appreciate your time.
I would like to say that I'd like, you know, AJ, if you can send that follow up in Discord, I'd be glad to answer.
Okay, he's nodding yes.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you.
Yeah. See you guys. Have fun out there.